The next one we will discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience for work that you've done on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, or other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6. And then on line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Anna just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We'll post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch in case there's anything you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check on the status of your application? There are 2 resources. First is the secured check. You'll need your application fee number and your contractor PIN number to get an update. We'll send you that information after we receive and accept and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing time. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork. It's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take the extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct, and then you have to start, we have to start the processing process again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. With our test centers reopened, we added an additional session in the late afternoon to early evening to help us catch up with the 3 months we were closed. We have got 7 test centers around California, and we would encourage you to take your exams at the test center closest to you. Those centers are from north to south: Sacramento, San Jose, Fresno, Oxnard, San Bernardino, Norwalk, and San Diego.
If you're an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow the use of a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads the examination questions to you. Question number 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the exam. The translator must be pre-approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with somebody to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our examinations. Included in each study guide, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen here.
So here's a quick look at 2 of those study guides. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take no matter which license classification, including the D Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. we would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics of the exam. You will also note on the lower right of both of these 2 slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for test centers. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video of what to expect on test day. The video you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You'll take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will walk you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that they may reduce that amount of time you'll get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the question you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
So after you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay a $200 initial licensing fee, which will be good for 2 years. You will also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor sureties bond, and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you're applying for. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you have employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information on that. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption form with CSLB. You can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and a plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to solicit business or talk to a potential customer or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, November 4th of 2020, will expire November 30th of 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, or anywhere you need so you don't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. And if you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to receive it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to the personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. Again, these people are called home improvement salespersons, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones that can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, license qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. An HIS can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when either they associate or disassociate an HIS with their license.
There are a couple of sections to this note. First are those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered HIS. And bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, or plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company out to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be registered as an HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code section of law.
All right, well, that is our presentation. It is time now to answer your questions. So we're going to go ahead and bring our cameras up so you can see us as we go through. Now, I've done my best to go through some of the basic questions while Justin and Anna were giving you the presentation, but we're going to now go through and answer some of the questions that I skipped over. Some I'd like to talk about and get some insight from Justin and Anna. So Justin and Anna, just so you know, we're going to start with the first question came into us at 10:24 a.m. So if you can go on your list to that, we'll move down. Everything that's got a gold Q will be the questions that we'll be looking at, and I'll be going down in order. So the first question we've got is, we've got a Class C, a C27 license. They need to know what they need to do to get an A license. Do they have to take the law test to add an A license?
I guess Anna and I can probably switch off. I'll do the first one and then we'll just go from there. So because they already have a license, they would be filling out the additional qualification application, and they can find that on our website. It's a little bit of a shorter application process. And because they already took the law and business, they will not need to take that one again. They can just take the trade. And sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, next question came through at 10:26. Would holding a California license in architecture count in credit towards a contractor's license?
Not necessarily. Not just holding the license qualifies you. There are some, perhaps there are some duties that you perform that may help you, assist you, but not necessarily just having the license will qualify you for a contractor's license.
Okay, next question came in two different pieces. The first part came at 10:29. Good morning. I have over 20 years of experience in carpentry and co-owned a it's like construction management general contracting firm in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for 8 years. However, I've been out of the industry for 10 years. During that period, they moved to California. Since then, they've done permitted renovations on their own house and gotten a construction management certification from UC Davis. How may that apply towards getting their license?
So based on that information, good news. If you've completed that UC Davis program and you send us those transcripts, again, I think it was Anna who said it earlier on, make sure they are sealed, or you're just going to delay the process. So make sure you keep those sealed, submit it with your application. That's going to go a long way to your experience requirements. And then what we'll do is we'll actually evaluate the permitted work you did. Rick, I forgot on the question. Is this going for a B?
I'm going to guess yes. It doesn't say for sure, but they were a general contracting and construction management firm in DC before moving out to California. So I'm going to guess yes.
Okay. So based on that, and I'm glad to hear it was permitted work. That's usually the biggest example of when we can't actually give you additional experience. We're typically going to look at the square footage, but we say every project's a little bit different. So I don't want to delve too much into the specifics, but based on the situation you're telling me, I think you're in pretty good shape. We would just have to look at the specifics when they got here.
Okay, next question. Actually, we're probably going to stay with Justin for this one because I think you've got a little bit of insight you can offer here. Question is, I heard that California has created a new classification of license that's set to take effect next year. I've heard that it's called a B2 license or a home remodeling. Is this true? I don't see it listed on the classifications link on the website.
It is absolutely true, and I'm really excited about it. But we're writing the test as we speak. So our testing division is creating the exam right now. I'm probably giving too much detail, so I apologize. We're striving right now to have that test available by August of next year. I can't promise that's the date, and I really hope it's sooner. But I'm really excited about that classification. It's actually the first one I think we've had in over a decade. And we hope to have that test by summer of next year, and then you can apply for it. And we'll be working with the Public Affairs Office when we get closer to make sure everyone has that and we get your questions answered.
Yeah, we are very excited about that. That's going to be a real game changer for the industry and allow a lot more people who couldn't qualify for a full B license to be able to get a license and get to work. So we're excited about that. So stay tuned. We will obviously have a lot of information on our website. And we'd also encourage you to sign up for our email alerts. We've talked about it during the presentation. That way you'll get email bulletins from us. Okay, next question is, I have a bachelor's degree that says that qualify for only 12 months of experience. So I've also obtained an associate degree that qualifies for 24 months. Can that be added up together?
Oh, sorry, Anna, go.
So remember, we can't tell you ahead of time. Nobody can review your transcripts ahead of time. However, we do want to encourage you to send them in. Once they land on a technician's desk, they will look at your transcripts and determine how much credit experience credit they can give you. Remember, it's not on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah, and as we go through here, I'm kind of previewing some of the questions. Yeah, some people are getting very, very specific. We'll give you the best information we can. We may not be able to get it, exactly right because we're going quickly here and we're not really looking at your backgrounds, but we'll try to answer it as best as we can. Unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, we do get thousands of applications in, but just you can even tell me how many per month, but we get a lot in every month, so we just don't have the time to do a lot of the pre-work here, but we'll give you the best guidance we can. Okay, in that spirit, hello, does a person who has been working as a partner in a corporation for over 15 years would still need to take an exam to get licensed, or is there a different pathway?
Well, a partner in a corporation, I'm going to assume they mean officer. And there's a couple of ways to do it. If you're part of a corporation for over 5 years, there are certain waiver provisions you can meet. And there's I want to split it up into two things. One is the exam, which is when I say waiver, that's all I'm talking about is the exam. And then the separate issue is experience. So in the course of your time with that corporation, you'll need to have had experience in one of those categories we already talked about, journey person, supervising employee, etc. That's going to be critical, and that's sort of the experience evaluation. And then second, we would look at whether or not you would qualify to have an exam waiver. And in many instances, if you have been an officer for over 5 years or a supervisor within the company for over 5 years, there's a lot of times where you can get that exam waiver. I just don't want to specifically promise you it because it will matter a little bit about your circumstances and what you're trying to do.
One of the things I would just point out too is when you go onto the website, sometimes it can be difficult to find things on any website. So I'd encourage you to use the search feature on our homepage. If you're looking for the license classifications, fastest way, just type in classifications. The first thing that shows up there will show you the link to the list of classifications. If you have a question about waivers, type in waivers. I mean, it'll save you a lot of time as you go in and search through. The search feature is terrific. It works really well. So if you're challenged on trying to find something, chances are you will if you try that search feature. Okay, next question. I have worked under a general contractor that has passed away. How can I show my experience working under him? And it says checks. I assume that, checks question mark.
So you don't necessarily have to have the person that you work for doesn't have to be the person that's filling out your work experience certification form. It can be somebody who has knowledge that you have at least journeyman level experience. So you're going to want to go ahead and take a look at that certification form. There's several different categories at the bottom of the form, and just have them fill out the form, be as detailed and accurate as possible, and we will consider that experience.
Okay, next question is, can a BS in engineering qualify as construction degrees? If not, does that mean that an engineering degree would only be worth 18 months less a business degree?
Again, it's going to depend a little bit, but BS in engineering is a pretty good one. But we'll have to actually look at that specific transcript to see how much we're going to grant you. And I'll just reiterate sort of what we said earlier on. Don't squeak by with this. Like, make sure you've got a little bit of real world experience, because that's still critical in our review. And then I'll make sure we do my contact information at the end if anyone needs to get into specifics for their circumstances.
Justin, be careful what you ask for. You put that out. 129 people heard you say that. Okay, next question. If an RMO wants to add a new license, does he only need the new application, exam waiver, and personnel form on the initial application? So RMO wants to add a license. So it's like, I'm guessing here they want to get a second license. So do they only need to file a new application, file an exam waiver?
So if I'm not sure if you're already an RMO on one license and you want to get a second license, you can add a classification to your license. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking for, but if you want a completely different license, you're going to be an RMO on a different license, you would need to submit the exam. If your current license is in the same classification as the one that you're applying for, then you can see if you qualify for the waiver. But yes, that's what we would need. Same process for getting a new license. It's the same exact process that we discussed today.
Okay. Next question, if I apply for a sole ownership now and later add a person to my license, will I have to change to a partnership?
It depends how you're adding that person. I mean, you can certainly have an employee. If you want the person on your license, I'd need more information though. My guess is there's a lot of circumstances where individuals, after they've been in the industry for a while, want to create partnerships. And we can certainly talk about that. I would caution you, when partnerships break up, that license can really just be cut off. And so that's the thing you want to keep in mind. But your specific circumstances are really important for the advice I would give. So again, I know there's 139 people, but I'll give my email on this because I need to really get into the details.
Okay, we're down to 128, so you'll be a little safer. Okay, next question has to do kind of just to go over the process again. It says, do we take the exam after the application has been accepted? I'll just say yes. The first thing you do is work with the application, get it accepted. I'm just starting a company. I'm assuming that all insurances must be in place before applying. And I'll just say no, they don't need to be in place before applying. And if either one of you, Anna or Justin, want to jump in and just explain at what point how that process works, and when they want to contact the insurance and brokers to get their license and bond.
So that's actually going to be the final step. That you don't need to worry about that until you actually pass your examination. So go ahead, apply, send in your application, work with the technician, get your application ready. Then we'll go ahead and send you a test date. Once you pass the examination, we will give you information about bond and insurance.
Okay. Okay, so for Anna and Justin, this next one got cut off mid-question. So it starts off at 10:44 here. It says, I have had an RME for 4 years now in my incorporated company. Will they qualify for the general license now? He oversaw all work that we encountered that needed a contractor. He was added to the S Corp.
I need more information, really. So,
well, this is Tyson. Tyson, if you do have something additional, send me something in the chat box, and I'll try to add that in to help us understand. We can move on and come back to this.
So I'm sorry. Yeah, there are certain things that you can take advantage of after you've been on a license for 5 years, but that's probably more of a fact specific where you'd want to contact me, and we could walk through that.
Okay. Okay, next question is, what if I'm applying on working for a company where I gained my experience, so I still need to create an entirely new business and obtain my own license? So he says he's planning to work. This is a 10:44 a.m. question. What if I'm planning on working for the company where I gain my experience? Do I need to create an entirely new business name to obtain my license?
So if you are applying for a license, but you're not planning on using it, you're still going to work for another company. You can let us know that your business name, you wouldn't have to select a business name. If you pass your examination and don't want to select a business name at the time, that's fine. We would issue it to your name. You'd have the license in your name.
And just to add to this, the reason I really enjoy my job is my father is now a retired contractor, was a contractor for 40 years. And I would say, if this is your livelihood and this is your career, a lot of people in the trades basically get with their own name. They're a sole owner. And as their sort of career transitions, they just make it inactive and they can go on another person's license. And then, when they move on to a different company, they just reactivate it. That, based on the question, I think that's probably the way you'd want to proceed. So in essence, your business name would probably just be your name. You'd be a sole owner. And as you're sort of associating, disassociating with people in the industry, you would just activate and inactivate your license.
Okay, I'm going to try something a little out of the norm here. I wanted Tyson, he sent me a note with his email address, but we want to hopefully try to deal with this now. So Tyson, I'm actually going to open up your microphone. If you've got your microphone there and you want to ask us your question, we're going to go ahead. So Tyson, if you're there, go ahead and ask us your question. We'll see if we can help you out this way.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm always a unique person that I always run into situations last moment. So the truth is, like 6 years ago, I went through all the classes and training and applied for my license. Right when I was going through that process, somebody sued me in my company, and then they lost the suit. I won the suit. Then the contractor board was notified, and I went back and forth about if I needed a license. And ultimately, they said I needed a construction cleanup license, which is taking the law portion. So I still wanted to do construction, so I hired on my brother-in-law as a RME and assigned him into my corporation. It's been like that for like 4 years, and he's oversaw all those jobs. There's not a lot of them, but enough. So I was qualified, but I just, I got burnt. So I need to move forward in my company and continue to work. So at this point, I want to separate and take the liability away from him and just put it directly on me. And I want to know what the paperwork, you want the S Corp information? Do you want?
So Tyson, based on that, this is one of those times where I just want to schedule like a 20-minute call with you and have your license pulled up, because this is going to be incredibly fact specific, because there also could be a judgment issue I need to research first before we talk. So I'm just gonna, if Rick has your email, I'll send you an email just separately after we wrap up, and we can schedule something for next week.
Okay, terrific. I do have Tyson's email, so thank you, Tyson. Okay, we'll move on. If RMO is opening up a new company separate from the first company, does he need work experience form vouching for it, or is it by nature of him being licensed for years current enough?
All right, I'm gonna rest my voice after this one. But yes, it sounds like he's already an RMO. If he doesn't already have his own license, he would easily qualify. This is a really straightforward waiver application, so not very complicated.
Okay, next question, and we'll throw this one at Anna, and we'll let Justin rest. How do you mark work experience that's 25%, not 50%? So if you can kind of go through and how they should demonstrate the partial years or the months of credit to work towards the 4 years.
Sure. So you can remember, we're trying to get 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. So if you mark 25%, I'm not sure you're going to make it within the last 10 years, because if you did 50%, we'd be looking for 8 years within the last 10. So 25 brings you down, less than that. So what we're looking for is a total of 4 years within the last 10. But you can explain to us, and like we said, you can make multiple copies of that form. So let's say you have different people who can certify different percentages. That's fine. We will do the math as long as they're not overlapping months. We're looking for 4 years of within the last 10 years.
All right, next question. My boss does not have a contractor's license. I've been working under the table for 5 years and I want to go legit on my own. Good for you. I'm interested in the specialty D21 well and pump license. I'm not sure what to do for work experience. We don't need permits to work on wells.
So I would encourage you to apply. And I don't want to talk out of turn. I don't think I've ever seen an experience cert for the D21, but our classification deputy, I can almost guarantee you has. And while I can't speak specifically to that classification here, I imagine we've got guidance. I just don't know what it is at the moment. So again, I'm happy to sort of, we can set something up where I can review it. I just don't want to speak out of turn just because I've never looked at one of those. We don't get a lot of them, so.
And there's only a few hundred well licenses in the state, and actually a couple of years ago when we had all the drought problems, we were part of a big push to try to get new people to come into the industry. So I'm happy to hear that you're looking for that, especially great news on both ends, and so good luck with that. Okay, next question. Can an individual who completed construction courses be accepted as credit, or do you only accept completed certificates or degrees? Well, the chart that we had, we did talk about individual classes, and that's determined on a case-by-case basis. So if you're asking about some individual classes, you might be able to get some minimal credit for that. The bigger chunks of credit, though, you're going to get if you actually have certificates or degrees. Okay, next question. I only have a few other questions about the new B2 remodeling license, assuming it's another classification. What's the difference between a general contractor's license and the new B2 license?
So the difference is, I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
No, it's structural framing, but I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to step over it. I'm writing my contact right here anyway.
The construction license require the framing experience. If you don't have the framing experience, but you have, we always get the question about a handyman license. We don't have a handyman license, but this B2 would be the appropriate, if you don't have framing, but you have done a lot of remodeling work, that would be the appropriate classification. You don't have to have the structural framing aspect to it.
All righty. Okay, again, when will the test for the B2 become available? Justin, I think you said we're shooting it next summer, August or so. Was I?
Yep, my goal is August 1st, and I hope to surprise everybody and be sooner.
Okay, so probably October or November of next year to be safe. You know how things work, especially in a COVID world, but we'll do our best. Well, like I said, and Justin and Anna both exclaimed, we are very excited about this classification, and we're going to work as quickly as we can to get the exam developed and to move forward. Okay, can a general contractor with a general contractor, which would be soon to be a B1 license, do the same work as a contractor with B2? No, the structural and the framing is the big difference. Okay, with zero construction experience, what would be my best way to apply for an RMO or an RME? We own a few commercial properties in California, and all permits would be for our own properties. I know it's very specific. Maybe we can just kind of take a piece out of this and talk about the process. If you don't have enough experience to qualify the license, how would you go about, or what are some ways to maybe find somebody you can work with to become an RMO or RME?
So I think if Anna's okay with it, I'll speak to the first part, and then I think Anna, I don't want you to meet Anna in her role or 9-to-5 role with your commercial properties. So after I'm sort of done explaining the good way to apply, I'll have her speak to whether or not you should get a license in this circumstance, because I'm actually not quite sure. So I'm interested in her answer too. So under your circumstances with no experience, you are going to look for somebody who's out there and been in the trades and is going to be a part of your business. A lot of individuals try to find somebody who sort of has been in the trades historically and is going to serve as either an employee or officer. There's business models for both, where they become an officer of your corporation or your partnership, your LLC, whatever they do. And there's also other models where they become an employee. The critical thing is that's not just a paperwork thing. It's incredibly important that they are supervising that work, and they are ultimately responsible and are signing off on that work. That's what's critical. I think a lot of people mistakenly think they just need that on the paperwork and then that's it. And you can get into a whole lot of complications with that sort of business model. And then I'm curious just about commercial properties when you own them.
So they were mentioning, I think, is that the permits would be for their own properties in order to gain experience, which is the additional form that we allow them to complete when they are qualifying for the B license. So if you were to submit for the B license, let me get the correct name of the form. You want to go ahead and complete the form. You're going to list the permit number, but that's only if you're qualifying for a B license, and you can get experience credit. You would be able to receive experience credit if you have, it's the owner builder B general building construction project experience form. So you're going to want to complete it, put the completion date, the start date, the permit information, and we will, like I said, be as accurate and complete as possible, and the licensing division will consider how much experience they can give you for that work experience.
Great. Good information. Thank you. Okay, next question is, I have a reading disability. Can I have somebody read me the exam?
We have an accommodation form. You can actually, when you're actually getting to that phase of being scheduled for the exam, you can request an accommodation. And then based on your specific circumstances, staff and the testing division will work with you to find the appropriate accommodation. We have a lot of experience with that, and so it shouldn't be any cause for concern.
Yeah, absolutely. That too, and also if somebody wants to take it in a different language and use a translator, we talked a little bit about that. But yeah, we've got a lot of experience with that. Not a big deal. We can handle that one. Okay, next question. I have that form and filled it out, but I have 2 questions on it and still don't know what to fill out. Oh, they're talking about disassociating. Hold on a second. I think I might have partially answered this question first, so let me kind of restructure this here. They are going to bring on somebody on a different license. They need to know the timing. When should they disassociate from their first license? Do they have to do that before they come onto this license, or how would the timing work for somebody, or can they have the multiple licenses?
That's a really complicated question. That very much depends. What I will say is, under most circumstances, it's done simultaneously here, and there are specific boxes you can check based on the application you're going to submit. But this can get really confusing. There's a lot of companies out there right now in transition, and so we are dealing with that on a daily basis. And just so that I don't give you bad advice, I would again, I did it in the chat. You can see my email, but it's really simple. It's just justin.paddock, PADDOCK @cslb.ca.gov, and then we can go through your specific circumstances, because it'd be difficult to answer broadly.
Yeah, and if you didn't catch that, just look at Justin's on camera. You see his name at the bottom of that. Just put a dot in between the first and last names, and then it's @cslb.ca.gov. If you have any complaints about that thing, send your complaints to Justin too. He'd be happy to hear from you. All right. The next one kind of actually is in line with that. This one talks about the passing on a company from within a family. It says, I'm not looking to start a new business. Owner, a father of a corporation, is looking to retire, holds a C8. This man has over 20 years of experience with the company and is looking to get the license in case he's not able to continue. So what would be the process to maybe take over that license from the retiring relative?
Again, the licensing unit will work with you. I don't know if it's did like you say, it's a corporation. So if he wants to be added to the license and then later can transition over, it's not a difficult process since he already owns a corporation, it looks like. So he would need to be added to the license.
Terrific. Next one I think I can handle says, are the study guides that are sent with your exam the same ones that you find on the website? Yeah, they are. Same ones. For the C61 limited license, do I need to create my company before getting my license? Now I'm going to guess that he means come up with a company name, get a business license. In that case, yeah, you need to on your application, if you're going to have a company name, you need to list that. And so if that's what you mean by creating a company, yeah. As far as getting the insurance, the bond, the other things, no, not with the application. You can do that as you move through the process. Next question. I have an HVAC. Okay, this is going to get kind of specific here, so follow along. Guys, this is at 10:53, this question came. I have an HVAC certificate, EPA 608, certification for industrial refrigeration, and an associate of science degree in business. I'm currently employed as an industrial refrigeration manager. Does that qualify for the application under experience? But then he goes on to say, a C6 cabinet millwork and finish carpentry. To me, which I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like that's what your experience is in, is cabinet millwork and finish carpentry.
I think that's a different gentleman.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I was seeing. Okay, forget that then. Yeah, so just the first part. So HVAC with these different certifications with an AS degree. I know we kind of need a scorecard to kind of track that. But do you have any general thoughts on if that might get him enough experience?
It certainly looks like you're going to get some of your experience qualified for education. Again, as I said before, make sure it's sealed. I'm looking at the question, so I apologize. I'm not looking at the camera. An industrial refrigeration manager can mean a lot of things. And that's going to be where the rubber meets the road. Because we're actually, I'll expect you to sort of be in the trades. And so a lot of times when we see something like that, we're going to ask for a duty statement, and then it's going to get really fact specific. So you would need to apply, and we would actually analyze the duty statement in your position.
Another thing, Anna, I know during these workshops usually gives a lot of good experience. She says, go back and look at the actual description of the classification. So go to the website. If you can't find it, type in classifications. Look at the HVAC classification. It talks about the types of things you're supposed to know how to do. If that fits in with those things, that's what you want to describe on your application. Be able to document your things that will meet that criteria. That'll help you along. Okay, now I will try to catch up and get the next person's right. Okay, it says here, C6 cabinet millwork and finish carpentry contractor. Then he says contractor license or one or more specialty licenses for C6. Oh, he's leaning towards getting the general contractor's license, but okay, so it does. It's maybe you guys can make a little bit more out of this. I think he's trying to debate. It's hard to tell what kind of work he wants to do, but it looks like he's trying to debate between getting a B license or a C6. Maybe you guys can just talk about, because I've had a couple other questions we answered during this, to explain the two trades and how it works with a B, and you really can't be a specialty contractor with a B license. If you could just talk maybe a little bit about the B license and what makes it different and why you might want to, in some cases, if your work is real specialized, you might want to go with that specialty license instead of a B.
Sure. So the B license, as it stands now, the general B license requirement is that you have structural framing experience. So if that's something that you do not have, you wouldn't be able to qualify at this point for the B license. So you want to go ahead and look at our classification, description classification booklet, read what you can do with the B license, what you can do with the C6. But if you don't have the structural framing, the B wouldn't be an option. The C6 cabinet millwork and finish carpentry contractor, like I said, you can read the description, see if the work that you're doing falls in that classification, and if so, that would be the appropriate class.
And Justin's holding up the classifications guideline. You can also look on the website. You can, it's a searchable. You click on the specific one, and it'll pull the information up. But Anna, if you could just touch briefly on, if you do have a B license, you can, if somebody just hires you to install cabinets, that B license is not the appropriate license, and just talk about how it needs to have the two different classifications in addition to the framework.
Okay. So one of the requirements for the B license is that you have to have 2 unrelated trades on every contract. Which means somebody could not hire you just to paint a house or just to install cabinets. You would have to have 2 unrelated trades every single contract that you took. Now, you could take that contract. Let's say that somebody asked you if you could paint a house, but you're not a painter, and so you could take the contract as a B licensee, but you would have to subcontract it out to the appropriately classed subcontractor. So you could do that. However, if you find that people are hiring you just to install cabinets, then the C6 would probably be the most appropriate classification for you. And
Yeah,
remember, you can always add classifications to your license. Let's say right now you apply for the C6, in the future you can apply maybe for the B1 if you see that you B2 license if you see that you meet the qualifications. That's always an option. It's $150 to add a classification to your license. It's the same license number. It's just proving the experience, adding classifications to your existing license.
And the good thing too is you only have to take the business and law exam once. You add a classification, you only have to take that trade exam for that specific one. Or if it happens to be one of the subclasses, the C61D classes, you don't even have to take an exam for those. It's just the business and law, which you had already passed. Okay, our family members, do they need to have workers' compensation insurance to cover them? Justin.
So if they're employees, absolutely yes. Here's a critical thing that I always try to warn people about. If you've got an individual who's working for your company, as opposed to, Anna may want to correct me here, but I don't want to speak to someone who's like maybe your bookkeeper. I think you would need one, but that's not going to affect the CSLB laws. When CSLB is looking at it, we're looking at somebody who's actually going to be on sites or part of the contract relationship, who's dealing with the customer. Those individuals, whether they're your brother and you beat them up in high school or not, need a workers' comp policy.
Right. And we consider an employee a person who is out for one job, one day. It doesn't matter. If we show up there and you have one employee and say, oh, he's my friend, he's just helping me out for today, it doesn't matter. That person needs to be covered. We would consider them employees. So yes, family members included, unless they are listed on your license, they are actually on the license itself, then they wouldn't have to. But if they're your employees, we do see them as employees, and you would have to have workers' compensation for them.
Okay, next question talks about the D license. What license? After submitting, how long do they have to wait? I'm jumping around here. They're cutting pieces. It just says what license D. So we've touched a little bit on it. These are our limited specialty classifications. So if you go to the website and type in classifications, get the classifications list, go all the way down to C61. That talks about the limited class. You open that up and you're going to get the list of what they're called the D class limited specialties. Probably the biggest one we have in that one is tree service. So if you're want to be a landscape contractor and install landscaping and do all the work associated with that, you would get that C27. But if you only wanted to do tree trimming or tree removals, it would be appropriate to do that limited classification. So you look at the D licenses there, that shows you the limited classes. The other big difference, as we mentioned just a minute ago, you do not have a trade exam for the D licenses. But the warning that we gave you earlier as well is don't try to get a bunch of D licenses and then to do the work that the C license would require. That's no cheaty-weeties allowed here. So that's what that means. Send us another question if I didn't quite get it right on what you wanted to ask. Next question is, what license do you need to install flooring and carpets? Flooring, I believe, is C15. So that would be a C15 license. Again, look at the licensing classifications, run through them. You'll find all of them there. After submitting the application, in this case it was C61, how long do you have to wait for the exam? We talked about that a little bit when we ran down Justin, what he put on there about checking about the processing. And actually, because of COVID, Justin, it probably would be a good idea if you just talked about how the exam centers are running now and what kind of a wait somebody can expect.